Hello guys, my name's Emma. Recently I found something really suspicious about my new stepmom. I was desperately trying to get any evidence to prove to my dad that she was hiding something bad from him. Now listen, everything happened when I was 19. I studied at college and lived at home with my dad. Ever since my mum died many years ago, my dad and I were really close with each other, and I knew he'd miss me if I left. So that year my dad turned 50, and he suddenly decided to go to Thailand to spend the whole winter there. We connected through Skype, and he really seemed to be having fun. On one of the days he told me that he had a huge surprise for me, and I was pretty sure that he was planning to bring some Thai spices back, because I was really fond of Thai food. So in the evening when he finally arrived and knocked on the door, I opened it with the widest and happiest smile. But suddenly, I saw a woman standing next to him. Her name was Marley, and she turned out to be his wife. I bet if you were in my place after having heard this kind of news, you would also look like you'd been struck by lightning. Marley hugged me and rushed to enter the house. My dad looked so ecstatic about everything while pulling their numerous suitcases out of the taxi trunk. He started explaining that Marley liked so many of the things in the duty-free shop that he couldn't help but buy everything that she wanted. Of course, I forced myself to smile at all that and went overboard with my hospitality. But the whole situation was totally shocking. I felt insulted that he didn't tell me about his plan when he was back in Thailand, and when I could have probably still done something about their marriage. However, during the first couple of days, I didn't even have a chance to talk to my dad in private, because Marley was acting like a suckerfish and following him everywhere they went. Both of them seemed so happy together, and Marley tried to be caring for my dad. Yet there was something that I couldn't put my finger on that kind of prevented me from liking her. For starters, once I got home really late, because I'd been working on an important paper for college. It was dark everywhere, and I didn't want to wake anybody up, so I decided not to switch on the lights and silently sneak into my room. You know, I grew up in that house, so I was pretty sure I knew every single inch of it. But I barely took a couple of steps when I hit my toe on something really hard. I looked around and I barely recognized my home. Everything was situated in the wrong place. It turned out that Marley had redesigned the house according to some feng shui theory or whatever. The next day I discovered that I had hit my toe so badly that the nail on it had broken. Was I mad at Marley? For sure. I even tried to convince my dad that the way everything used to be before was more than comfortable. But apparently, his new wife was not only good in the furniture arrangement department, but she was also good at the art of persuasion. Do you remember how earlier I mentioned that I liked Thai food? Well, forget it. Everything that Marley could cook was Thai, and it seemed to me that she was cooking constantly, or at least that strong smell of Thai food took over the whole house. But whenever I wanted to cook something myself, she'd stop me and point at the fridge, saying that there was already plenty of food there. And here, once again, my dad simply didn't want to hear any of my complaints. Well, actually, he gave me a hint, saying that I was going to get married and leave the house someday anyway, so it would be better to just let Marley feel like the woman of the house. That made me so mad that I even started to think about finding myself my own place, or at least asking the college for a room in the dorm. When one day, I noticed something suspicious. I was sitting in my room when Marley announced that she was going to clean the first floor, saying that I'd better stay upstairs. My dad had gone out to run some errands at that time. At some point, I decided to grab a snack and went to the kitchen, and suddenly, I noticed that Marley was talking on Skype through my dad's laptop. As soon as she heard me coming, she closed the Skype session and pretended as if she was just cleaning the dust from the laptop. That was totally weird. I went back to my room, full of thoughts about what I had just seen, and all of a sudden, I started surfing through the internet about Thailand. I didn't know what I was looking for exactly. I just kept reading different articles and forums and came across various stories about how Thai women got into relationships with foreigners, forced them into marriage and then went to live with them in their developed countries while leaving their Thai husbands and children in their hometowns. Their plan was as simple as ABC. They earned a living by pulling money from their foreign husbands, seized their property, and then went back home and repeated the same thing with another man. As I was reading all those articles, my eyes got wider and wider. After all, I literally saw the story of Marley and my dad between the lines. And now that I caught her talking on Skype and reacting as if she wanted to hide it from me, I was 90% sure that she was also working on one of these fraudulent schemes. I decided that at all costs I had to save my dad from the hands of that vulture. And even though I had spent all the money I'd been saving for my vacation on the installation of a surveillance camera and a special Skype call recording program, I was sure it was worth it. I felt like a real detective when, in 2 days, Marley made that call again, and I got a copy of it. Of course, the conversation was happening in the Thai language, but judging from the fact that she was talking to a little boy who was about 7 years old, I was pretty sure that I was right in my initial assumptions. I was already ready to hire a translator who would type up the script of their dialogue for me in English, but then I decided to look through the recording of the surveillance camera for that day. I could hardly breathe from indignation, because it turned out that day an unknown to me man came into our house, and Marley almost immediately took him upstairs. He left an hour later, and in 1 more hour, another man came and also spent about 60 minutes with Marley somewhere in our house. After that, I no longer had doubts about what kind of Thai lady my dad's wife was. It was so outrageous, and my first intention was to show my dad all my detective findings. But on second thought, it would be better for me if he didn't find out all the camera stuff and simply caught Marley red-handed. That's why the next day, I only pretended that I left for classes. But in reality, I lurked in a coffee shop near the house and began to monitor our living room. Just as soon as another guy appeared on my screen and I saw how Marley took him upstairs, I called my dad and told him that he urgently needed to come home because something wrong was going on with Marley. Well, technically, it wasn't that big of a lie, right? I was waiting for my dad, struggling to hide the excitement that I had. I vividly imagined how mad he'd be when he found out the truth about his wife and how he'd kick her out of our house along with all that feng shui stuff and pour her favourite coconut soup all over her head. I really tried to make my face look worried instead of being full of anticipation when my dad finally arrived. Now his face was definitely racked with emotion, and I felt so sorry for worrying him that much. But I had to stick to the plan. When we entered our house, we heard a male groaning from their bedroom. That immediately made my dad angry, and he just rushed upstairs as if he was a young athlete. Of course, I followed him right away, but when we opened the door and I was honestly about to yell something like, "Aha!" pointing my finger at them, I stopped short of what I saw. Marley was wearing special clothes, similar to pajamas, and the guy that was lying in front of her on a special massage couch, covered with a towel. Both of them looked scared, but from unexpectedness, rather than being caught for doing something bad. Damn. While the poor guy was still getting dressed and leaving our house, my dad and I were sitting in the kitchen, waiting for Marley. I felt disappointed and embarrassed at the same time, but I still didn't lose hope that I'd reveal Marley's secret about that Thai boy from the Skype call. When she finally appeared, she confessed that since my dad's birthday was coming in a few months, she'd wanted to earn some extra money to buy him a present for everything that he did for her. And it was supposed to be a surprise, and that's why she was performing those massage sessions secretly. This turn of events touched my dad, and they began to hug and kiss. In a desperate rage, I simply yelled about that boy that she was talking to on Skype. But once again, my attempt to separate this loving couple was ruined. It really was Marley's son from her first marriage, and my dad knew about him. He was living with Marley's dad in Thailand, but she was planning to bring him to the US, and my dad was planning to adopt him. Both of them just decided to wait until I got used to Marley and my dad's new way of living. I have to admit, I've never been that embarrassed in my life before. Of course, I had to tell the guys about my detective experience, and luckily, the two of them turned out to be understanding, and neither of them got mad at me. I decided that the time for me had come to live separately from my dad, so I rented an apartment with two other girls from my college. Marley's son is already here, and he lives happily in my former bedroom. I'm sure that this story will always be something to laugh at during family gatherings.